Eating is awesome, dieting is not. Kendra had tried everything to get her weight under control, and she is here to share the one technique that rewired her habits so that you too can feel like the badass you were always meant to be. Hey, guess what? You can do less and still be on top of everything. The voice that says everything will just fall apart is total mind BS. So, hey, Kendra, so excited to have you here. Tell me a little bit about your journey with food and dieting.
Yes. Well, I kind of joke that my story starts literally when I was born because I was 10 pounds when I was born. And apparently that's a thing that people love to talk about. And so I feel like that created an imprint from a very early age that I was this big monster. But then food was just a really big part of my family. I had two very different models of food, one that was very like overeating, one that was kind of eating like a bird, my dad, my mom respectively. And then I figured out that food kind of worked, quote unquote, worked for me in a way. And not consciously at the time, I was a kid, but I would use it to feel better. And then I did end up gaining weight, which then led to at some point wanting to diet. And then that became just a total all encompassing obsession for me, dieting and trying to lose weight, trying to change my body. And the longest thing that I struggled with was bulimia and orthorexia. I don't know if you've heard that term, but it's basically
No.
like an unhealthy obsession with being healthy, if you can believe it. That's a thing.
Yeah, I get that.
And and so yeah, and at a very early age, I was determined to figure it out for myself so that I could help other people.
And you
And
did.
so
You figured it out.
now I'm
So
here.
tell me, what's the secret?
I mean, the secret for me and the people that I now work with is an inside out approach, which is kind of opposite to what we learn typically, which is very outside in, which is like there's this expert who's telling you that this is the diet, these are the foods to eat, these are the foods to not eat, this is the exercise regimen to do. Like these are the results you can get. This is the pill, this is the supplement, this is the, right? Like that's the thing on the outside that's going to fix you. And so what I learned finally at some point when I got introduced to somatic work, which is what I do now, I realized that my body, what I already have here inside, can actually be the best resource for me on this journey. And in fact, doing the outside in approach actually made things worse.
Yeah.
So to explain that a little bit, you know, one example of how it can make it worse is if I am following somebody else's rules on what I should eat, that can actually be pretty friggin' stressful, right? Like, and especially if you have my history, my dieting history, and all of that, my nervous system has a response to that restriction and to following these rules. And so maybe it works a little bit in the beginning because I'm like gung ho and I'm like, I'm starting a diet, and it's like, no, I'm so excited. But how long does that last before at some point I start to feel the deprivation and the restriction? And now my nervous system freaks out and now I'm binging. So, did that actually work? Right? So, I'll be quiet and see, is that landing? Does that make sense?
Oh, that totally makes sense. And as somebody who has had my own journey with food and weight loss, I resonate with everything that you're saying. And so, you know, bulimia is no joke. Like that is a serious situation that you're in there. So I have unfortunately encountered a lot of these outside in approaches. I've encountered a lot of programs to help with eating disorders that, put you in a room for days at a time and moderate your diet and ensure that it stays in you. And I would love to know, if you were developing a program like this, what would be the essential components of it?
So fundamental to it is this idea of really learning that our body can be a resource rather than the enemy, because we think, oh, my body's fat, I hate it, it's doing something wrong, it's broken, it's doing things that I don't like, right? So it's like I need to fix it. And then when you learn these certain tools and these certain skills, you realize that actually I can like use my body to grow from this, to grow out of this. And but it's just a matter of learning these things. And so that's what I always tell people, is that weight loss or recovering from your food issues is actually just a matter of learning a handful of skills. And so that's what the ideal program is to me, is like learning these really, really simple skills that I think our ancestors probably knew, but we kind of unfigured them out and made it really complicated with all the experts and shit outside of ourselves. But yeah, and it's like, I think one of the biggest things that I tell people is we get good at what we practice. And even though that sounds really simple and really basic, it's like, for all the years that I did therapy and analyzing why am I the way that I am? Why do I go over to the fridge and I'm just like eating, standing up at the fridge? Or why am I like compulsive to go to the pantry and I said I'm just going to have one, but then I have the whole thing, right? Like, why am I like that? And I'm like trying to figure it out and going to all these healers and therapists and taking medication and reading all these books. And none of it actually, I mean, I don't want to say none of it helped. Of course, it was like, takes a village, right, to support somebody on their healing journey. But as far as really, like, it helped me with compassion and understanding myself more, but it didn't really change anything. I was still, even if I had this like amazing breakthrough session in therapy, I'd still go home and be doing the same shit that I was doing before. And so what I realized is that if I can just be equipped with like habit rewiring tools and like really simple skills, like how to eat, how to relate to my body, how to regulate my nervous system, and actually practice these new ways of being, like now that's what I'm going to get good at. Which, talking about it, trying to figure it out, doesn't do anything as far as getting you good at anything. It just gets you good at figuring it out.
I know what the problem is, but I have no solution still, right? So, yeah.
Right.
Tell me more about these habit rewiring techniques that you've got.
Habits are a byproduct of doing something that worked at some point in our life. So, for instance, and I alluded to this in the beginning when I was telling you about kind of my journey, is like at some point when I was a kid, I figured out that food made me feel better. Again, it wasn't a conscious thought, but like every morning, for instance, this is one instance of how I use food to feel better. Before school, which I didn't even realize that I was super anxious to go to school, right? Like who is, well, in modern day, it's a little bit different. I think kids have more of a language with, I feel anxiety. I'm like, really? You're like 8. How do you know that word? But when I was growing up, there wasn't much of a language for it. And so I would be sitting in front of the TV. We had a little TV on my countertop, and I'd be watching cartoons and I'd be eating bowls and bowls of cereal. Bowls of cereal. Like I could have 6 bowls of cereal before school.
Wow.
And it was like, now in hindsight, I'm like, oh my God, like that was my body's wisdom. I thought that I was fucked up. Like I thought I was messed up, but really what it was like, oh my God, like that's so smart of me to have figured out a way to manage my feelings, my overwhelming feelings, and make me feel like settled, grounded in my body. Like now I can go to school.
That's a big
Which is,
reframe. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. And I think it's an important reframe too, because to come from a place of, I need to be fixed, I'm broken, I'm messed up, that's a lot harder to change and to have compassion as we're doing these rewiring techniques, because the foundation is crumbly. But if my foundation is coming from a place of like, actually, I'm normal. Like everything that I figured out to do, that was actually a very normal response. And everybody has their thing, right? Like everybody finds their way to cope. And for me and for a lot of people, it's food.
Right. Because that's what's available, right? You figured out that it feels good. Yeah, your body knows what to do, and this feels good. And there's probably even like a meditation component to crunching your cereal as you're sitting there,
Yeah.
tuning
Oh
out
yeah. I
the
absolutely I use the word trance state. Like I would get into a trance state
yeah.
and I would get so kind of disembodied so that I could handle the overwhelming feeling. And so now the opposite of that is actually learning how to get embodied. Because if I like, so anybody who's going to a healer or a therapist or a coach, they're wanting to feel better, right? Like they're wanting to fix something so that they can feel better. But the problem with that is that life keeps on lifing. So like my boss freaks out on me. My partner wants to divorce me. My house won't sell. My sister gets diagnosed with breast cancer. Like so many things can happen. And there's always going to be something else to fix or something else to try to feel better about. But what if I just expand myself? If I can expand my nervous system, if I can expand what I have capacity for, now I don't really need to fix anything. And that's the power of somatic work, is working with the body to expand what I can have capacity for. Because if we're all just walking around trying to make our life smaller and more manageable, and if the goal is to always like be perfectly regulated, perfectly regulated nervous system, that is not my goal, to have somebody be perfectly regulated all the time. My goal is to, how can I expand your nervous system so that you can participate in life and everything that happens can just be a part of your aliveness.
Mm.
And when that happens, now I don't need to escape it and I don't need to use food. Ram Dass has this awesome quote. He says something like, if you're in Detroit, you don't need to take a bus to Detroit. So the way that I look at that is like, if I'm at peace with where I am, and when I say at peace, I mean that very broadly. Like, I don't mean at peace like I'm like perfectly relaxed and zen and regulated. It's about, can I actually just feel the aliveness, whatever I'm experiencing? So it could be sadness, it could be anxiety, it could be anger, it could be, whatever emotion, right? But it's like, if I'm okay with being here, then I don't need to use food to go anywhere else.
Yeah. If I'm okay in my own body as I am, I don't need to fix it.
Right.
That seems like a big journey to being okay where I am. So, how do you use somatic work to help people feel okay during those tough moments?
Yeah. So somatic work, it's really hard to put into words. because it's such an embodied experience. It's kind of like if you've ever done psychedelics or something and you try to explain it, it's like, yeah, that doesn't really sound how I feel it. But the way that it works is, for me as the facilitator of it, I'm in my body and really attuning to your body as well. And so part of my job is to be like feeling and sensing your body movements, where is your nervous system when we're talking about anything? And then it's about training you into how to be tracking your own nervous system and your own experience. And the reason why this is so important is because, in traditional talk therapy, if we're just talking about the thing, then there could be a dissonance between what you're saying and what you're feeling. And now we're missing out on a huge opportunity for transformation. Because if you're like, no, like I think yeah, I'm good with work right now. Like things feel really good. And I'm like, I saw you kind of look off to the side and your voice kind of went up and like I'm tracking all of that and I don't make it a self-conscious kind of a thing, but I'm like, how does that feel in your body when you say that? And then from there, they'll share something. It's like, actually, I don't really feel that. Like, that's actually not really true. This is going on, or this is going on, right? So somatic work is working in the moment, creating transformation in the sense that I'm helping the person to expand their nervous system literally in the moment, right? Because as they're sharing something could be activating their nervous system. And so right there, that's a perfect opportunity to be right there and let your body catch up to what you're saying and to what you're feeling. And now we actually literally in that moment just expanded your nervous system and created new neural pathways. And so now I can bring that into my life, because who cares if you have an cognitively aha moment, breakthrough in a session, but then you go home and you're just doing the same shit that you've always done, you know?
Yeah, for
Did I
sure.
answer your question?
It absolutely does. And I'm so curious because you have a free masterclass that will help people better understand this. Can you tell me more about that?
Dude, I am so excited about this masterclass. So I have been the type of person who has made masterclasses that's like 3 easy steps to food freedom and weight loss without dieting, And it's just, you see that. I mean, I see it everywhere. And not that that's not helpful. Like it can feel really good to know there's 3 simple steps or 3 easy blah, blah, blahs or whatever. But I just decided, I'm like, you know what? I think that the most powerful thing in this whole, in our self-growth journey is to feel it in our body and to feel moved. So less like thinking about it and more like I literally feel it on the inside and now I'm compelled to do something different. And so this masterclass, like I'm using the word masterclass, but it's not even a masterclass. It's like it's an experiential transformation session. And so I'm going to lead people on a journey to really the way that I've been describing it is like, if you've been obsessing about your weight and about food and about fixing this and feeling broken and out of control and all of that shit, at least for me, when I was in that place, I felt like there was this little ember inside me that was like, there's more to life. There's more than this, there's more than tracking your macros and tracking your calories. And to me, that ember is like, if I can get a little woo-woo with you, it's like our soul is wanting so much more than that. And so what I want this masterclass to be is this opportunity to ignite that ember, to like
fan that ember so that it's like, and it's like, yes, I am ready to like be the badass that I'm really born to be and to experience this miracle of a life, like beyond food and dieting and weight loss and obsessing and worrying and pinching my stomach and looking in the mirror and hating myself, you know? So that's my goal. That's my intention with it. And I'm so excited about it.
Well, that sounds truly transformative. So I will drop the link to the masterclass in the description below. But if people are looking to get a hold of you, where can they find you?
You can find me on pretty much any of the socials, mainly Facebook and Instagram. My name is Kendra Seoane, Seoane. And then you can also find my website, kendraseoane.com. And then I have a podcast that's called Not Another Weight Loss Podcast with Kendra Seoane.
Love it.
And so that podcast is just all about just expanding your mind beyond the traditional approaches to all of this, you know?
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Yeah.
So I will drop all of those links in the description so that people can find you and take advantage of all of this beautiful wisdom that you are bringing into the world. So before we sign off today, Kendra, is there any words of wisdom that you want to leave our audience with?
I think the biggest thing for me is to bring back the experimentation and the play and the childlike qualities that we all had at some point. And now when we're adults and we're like doing our inner work and we're doing like our inner child work, not that that's not valid. Like I'm all about doing inner child work, right? But it's like, if we're going to do inner child work on the trauma and the pain, why don't we also do some inner child work on the play and the fun and the spontaneity and the expansion and the like, I'm just going to fuck around and find out rather than like, let me figure this out with my head and like, you know, read all the books and hire all the experts and fix me, you know? So that's what I want to leave people with. Yeah.
I love that. That is a wonderful tip because I don't think of it that way. I don't think of, especially anything relating to food, like that's very serious to me, right? So to bring the play into it that just feels amazing in my body, just having you just say it. So thank you for that wisdom. I appreciate that so much. And thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope to see you again soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
My life is a total B word. Balanced. Subscribe below and let's see if your life can be the same.